How many times are you going to keep telling everyone you're an introvert? How many times are you going to keep putting yourself in this box? You're going to keep categorizing yourself as something that you may not be. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about 10 reasons why you're not an introvert. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the KimUnity Soulutions Podcast, the only podcast that turns workplace challenges into real world solutions. It is great to be with you all again. I feel rejuvenated, yet slightly tired, but I am here. I'm excited. And this topic popped up because I heard this word several times today. It was already on my mind. I was thinking, what can I talk about it? Because I used to call myself an introvert, right? I used to put myself in a box, but I was just having this discussion about how I stopped calling myself that, because every time I said the word, it would bring me down a notch. It felt like I was less than, and you may have heard me say that before. So I was explaining this to a class that I was having today. And I realized that there are so many people who are categorizing themselves as something when really it's a reaction. It's not really all the time what someone is, but it's their response to something. So that's what I wanted to talk to you all about today. So climb on in, jump on in, let's get into it. So when I looked it up, I like to start with a definition, even though I don't always agree with the definition. Okay. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as a typically reserved or quiet person who tends to be introspective and enjoys spending time alone. The Oxford Dictionary says it's a shy, reticent person, someone who's not revealing one's thoughts or feelings readily. Okay, so I can see that. I can understand that. But we don't have to classify ourselves as something all the time when really it could just be a response. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. So what I learned today was that Carl Jung, and his last name is spelled Jung, so the J is silent. He's the first person to introduce us to introvert and extrovert, right? And so I always see his quotes online. I haven't read a book, but I will be getting a book from him so that I can learn more about it, because I really enjoy the quotes. I'm always liking or loving the quotes that I see, but I really want to get more in depth into his thought process, into what he believes and what he has written. So that I will do. I encourage you to do the same. If you have a quote or anything like that you feel is great for us all to know, please leave it in the comments. So now I looked it up in the Britannica, and it says an introvert is a person whose interest is generally directed inward towards his own feelings and thoughts, in contrast to an extrovert whose attention is directed towards other people and the outside world. Do you agree with that? I mean, just because it's written in a book doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. As an introvert, do you believe that you're only thinking inward and not outward? I'm not sure if I agree with that. It says an introvert is shy, contemplative, and reserved, and tends to have difficulty adjusting to social situations. That could possibly be true. I don't think it's that way all the time. And that, again, is what I want to speak with you all today. So what are some reasons do you think that people are misunderstood as introverts, or they call themselves introverts? And I don't have any type of order. These are not in any specific order. They were just written as I was thinking about it. So the first one is you're just bored. You're not an introvert. You're just bored. And I created something. It was actually finished several weeks ago, and I put it on my website. And in the description, I put that in there, that you're not an introvert, you're just bored. Sometimes we need more stimulation. The environment that we're in is uncomfortable, it's dull, and we just need more. And so we're not ready or willing to open up. It doesn't mean we're an introvert, we're just trying to find our way. Have you ever been there before? Let me know. Maybe you're just not interested, you're not getting paid. Like I said, you're not comfortable. The second thing is there's no depth to the conversation. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to respond or act or behave when there's no depth in the conversation? I've never been the type to talk about name brands or people or just things that are of lack substance. I really like to have in-depth conversations. So yes, I may sit off, I may be reserved if I'm not into the conversation. It's not being rude. It is just being comfortable. I'm letting everyone else who is enjoying the conversation chime in, enjoy themselves. It's not like I'm trying to, or we're trying to interrupt what's currently going on. No, you have your fun and I am content over here. Just because we are quiet or sitting aside, oh, that reminds me, or sitting to the side, doesn't mean that we're upset. I was just on the plane. So let me show you. So if you can see me, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're just in audio, tune into my YouTube channel, KimUnity Soulutions. I made these cards. They're called Questions and Perspectives. And I pulled them out. I was leaving a conference in Orlando and I pulled them out on the way back. And I passed them around on the airplane so people can have conversations on the plane with the people that they're sitting in the same row with. And so that was one of the things that the gentleman said, and this is just now hit me, but he said, I grew up with a lot of sisters. And he said, but now that I'm older and I'm in my 40s, I cherish that time I have by myself. I am comfortable now being alone. Before, when I was younger, I needed to be around other people. But now I'm more quiet and more reserved and comfortable in my own space and my own skin is basically what he was saying. And he said, but now when I get around other people, they're asking me, are you okay? Are you sure? And he's like, yes, I'm fine. And so I could relate to that. And my response was, I can so relate to that. I can relate to that because I'm an only child. So it's the opposite. Where he's at now, that's what I began with. I was okay being by myself. My parents worked. I was at home. Yes, I had the phone, but there was no one else for me to talk to. So I was in my thoughts. I was in my ideas. I was learning on my own. And so that is an environment that I'm comfortable with. And so when I do get around people who are, comfortable in a different environment, they're asking me, are you okay? Are you okay? It's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. So I'm glad I just remembered that. So the second reason why you may not be an introvert is you just want more in-depth conversation. As soon as I finished creating these cards and I got them made, I went to church on Sunday. And that Sunday, we had a guest pastor, Pastor Keon Henderson, and his topic was trapped in the question. And it was right on time for me because it was really about what I made these cards for. But while I say introverts are bored, they're not introverts, they're bored. He said, you're not an introvert, you're mean. I fell back. Like, are you serious right now? I love him. I could hear and see what he's saying. But that's just another perspective, right? That's why these cards are called questions and perspectives, because none of us have the perfect answer, but we all have different perspectives. And collectively, we can create real world solutions, real world positive impact. Okay. So when he said that, I laughed. Everybody in the church laughed, and some may have gotten offended, like they got their toes stepped on, because it could be true. We could seem like we are uninterested, or some might say we act like we're too good, but that's not the case at all. That is just your perspective. So that message, that sermon touched me so much that I will be, and I'm just saying this so I can hold myself accountable, but I will be sending him, a deck and a message, at least a message, because I'm not trying to sell him anything, but just to tell him thank you. It was right on time. Okay, so the third thing, you're not an introvert. You are not an introvert. You just don't want them in your business. You just don't want them in your business. They may be in a conversation that you're not willing to divulge. You don't want to comment on it. You're uncomfortable. You know that they're nosy. You know that they may gossip. Whatever your input is may get out of that room, out of that space. So you choose to withhold your commentary. Introverts, well, no, I won't say introverts, but people misunderstand selectiveness from being an introvert. Can you relate to any of these so far? You just don't want to be there, you're bored, there's no in-depth conversation, or you just don't want them in your business. The next one, oh yeah, Pastor Keon said that we were mean. Okay. And I'm saying we because I used to say that I was an introvert, and I don't say that anymore because I understand who I am, how I respond. On the other side of that, it's not just about being quiet, it's about how you gain your energy. So yes, I will say I do gain my energy in solitude. It's not, I don't, I exert energy when I'm out in public. Okay. But other reasons why you are not an introvert. You've observed. You've already observed how people are acting around you. You have already peeped the scene. You see how this person has treated this person, or, they have talked about this other person when they left the room. So you've already seen how people act. So it's not like you're an introvert, but you have observed other people's actions, and now you are taking precautionary measures. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. You are being cautious. You have observed and you are taking the necessary steps. Can we just be tired? Can we just be tired? Can we just be exhausted? Can we just not be in the mood? We don't have to be considered an introvert. We could just be tired. We could be exhausted. You never know what someone is going through. You never know what they have on their plate. You never know what they're dealing with at home. That's why these cards that I made, it helps, especially in the workplace. You can use these with your friends, your family, and social gatherings, with your girls, with the guys, because the questions that are being asked makes you dig a little deeper. They're not just surface level. When you have a conversation and you ask questions that are not surface level, their response has them reveal more about them, right? So there could be a question that is about, if time and money wasn't a thing, what would you want more of? And some people would say health. Some people would say I would get help for my autistic son. And so maybe you didn't even know they had an autistic son, but they are showing up to work tired and drained. They're still being productive. They're still your best employee, but they had never revealed that before. They never felt comfortable revealing that or sharing that. They never thought there was an appropriate time. It's not something that they wanted to, um, what's the word? They didn't want to feel like they're throwing out an excuse or they wanted sympathy or anything like that. These cards will actually reveal and help you understand people because many times we are seeing people and we are making assumptions off the top, not knowing what is behind that, what was behind those actions, what was behind that thought, that smirk, that whatever it was. And so by asking questions, you get to learn a little bit more about them than the surface level that you do, the high and by. We're in a environment now where meaningless conversations are the norm. We don't work as close as we used to. Many of us work remote. Everyone's on social media. Everything is quick and flashy, and you have to respond in so many characters. We need time to get to understand people, especially if you're working with them, especially if you need more productivity, especially if you're trying to see what makes them tick or how can you be a better friend or what do you really need right now? What's on your mind? But what happens is we do one little thing and then someone makes this generalization. They make this assumption. They put this broad stroke over you because of something that you said or you did or you looked a certain way. But just because you were sitting over there, you could have just been exhausted. You could have spent all night at the hospital with a loved one. And someone perceives you as lazy or antisocial. You see how that goes? You're not an introvert. You're tired of arguing or being misunderstood and then have to go back and explain yourself. You have to explain your thoughts, explain your comments. And it's like, why bother? Let me just sit over here and stay out of your conversation because we end up getting in an argument or I'm misunderstood. We're not seeing eye to eye. You don't understand my heart or we come from different backgrounds. So when I say one thing, you're thinking another. This means we need more communication. You're not an introvert. You're tired of being misunderstood, which means you're around people who don't understand you or don't want to understand you. Some ignorance is intentional, right? Maybe you don't want to be judged or show up fully. If you are someone who is totally different than the people that you're around, maybe you're under your own impression that if you show up fully, then you won't be accepted. Or maybe if you show up fully, then it's deemed inappropriate or unprofessional. You're not an introvert. You are withholding yourself. You are retracting yourself fully from the situation. And so people will begin to think that you're standoffish, that you're an introvert. You don't want to socialize. Now, mind you, I'm going to have more than 10. There's a few more than 10 over here as I'm over here counting. Maybe it was how you were raised. You're not an introvert, but you were just told, don't speak unless you're spoken to. That's how you were raised this whole time, all those years. depending on the generation that you were raised in, don't speak unless you're spoken to. So now all you have are these thoughts that's going through your head. You're observing more. And you're not speaking until you're spoken to. On the other side of that, there are times when, and I've done it as well, that if I am in a room full of people who are more knowledgeable in a subject than I am, I choose not to speak. I want to learn. I want to hear. I want to gather information. I don't have to be an introvert to be wise. Everyone doesn't need to be running their mouth. Somebody needs to be quiet and opening their ears. Somebody needs to learn. Somebody needs to hear and understand different thought patterns and perspectives and reasoning and understanding and going through and trying to figure out, oh, okay, they got to this solution because they thought about this and this and this and this. And then that way, and I'm just telling you how I think. And then that way I can draw my own conclusions. Okay, well, if I didn't choose this, I choose that, then I get a different result. So just because people are quiet doesn't mean they're an introvert. They're doing something. They're exhausted. They're observing. They're learning. They are just trying to deal. They have observed you and they see that you are up to no good. They see how you've treated someone else around them, and so they are trying to steer clear. And that is all okay. Maybe you've spoken up before and you were undervalued, you were overlooked, your value wasn't appreciated. So no, that person isn't an introvert. They just know that whatever you say because of what's happened in the past, whatever they say because of what's happened in the past, it goes unnoticed. It goes unvalued, undervalued, is never taken into consideration. And so because of those past experiences, whether that was intentional or not, whether that was just their perspective and not truly what was intended, they have taken that into consideration and have applied that to future conversations, to future interactions. So that's why I always say that let's stop with all the categories. Let's stop with all the titles, because they put you in this box that you shouldn't be confined in. Maybe that was just one instance. Maybe that was just an misunderstanding. Maybe it was something just totally different. And along with the observation reason is sometimes you're mistaken. Sometimes your discernment is mistaken for disconnection because you've seen what someone's intentions are. You see them at their core and their heart, and you know, okay, I don't get good vibes here. This doesn't feel right. Let me refrain from sharing. Let me refrain from revealing everything. Let me sit back and test the waters. We have to have boundaries. And everything that I've said really should also apply to extroverts as well. Like you shouldn't be just out there this is my perspective. Everything requires thought is what I think. Everything requires thought. The main takeaway today is those people that you are calling introverts are not introverts. They're acting like that because of you, because of others that are around you, because of other people in that environment. They are not introverts. They are bored. They are exhausted. They are observant. They are tired of being misunderstood. They want more depth to the conversation. They don't want to share information that is going to be gossiped about later. They want to be able to trust the people that they're with. They want to be heard. They don't want to be overlooked. And they want to learn. They want to learn. You can't speak and what's the slogan or the saying? Your ears should be open and your mouth should be closed at some point. Something to that effect. Something to that effect. Oh, you have two ears for a reason. But you also have two lips. But you have one mouth, you have two ears. Sometimes we have to listen more than we speak. My solution for the day is to understand that not everyone are introverts. And whoever you are that's listening to me, yes, you may gain your energy in solitude. But in every instance, we're not going to say that we're introverts. Maybe you are cautious. Maybe you are being aware. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you need to be stimulated in a different way. Let's stop with the titles and just understand who we are, how we operate, what our thought process is, and really just be more self-aware of who we are and how we operate. Okay? I am Kim, the SME. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. As always, I am only speaking from my experiences. I hope you tune in next week for a different word. I hope you're able to apply this in your workplace. When you think someone is antisocial, you really need to get a better understanding of where they're coming from. And you can't be forceful and you can't call them out. You have to be welcoming. Put yourself in these scenarios. When do you see them entertaining or, having good conversation? What is the environment like? Because they can be quiet in a meeting, but then at lunch you see them laughing and talking and celebrating. Tap into those who are around you and figure out what makes them tick instead of judging and categorizing, because that is not the solution. That is not beneficial to either of you. You all be blessed. Until next time, you have been listening to the KimUnity Soulutions Podcast. Be blessed. Bye.